Hey everyone, Tactics here with my final War Within tank preview, where I'll be walking you through the current situation for Brewmaster monks, including the talent reworks that they got to both their class and spec trees, the tier set they're going to be getting in the first season of War Within, and their two hero talent trees, kind of how they work and how they impact you. If you're interested in any of the other tank specs, I have videos for all 5 of them over on my channel and linked in the description below, so make sure you check those out. Otherwise, let's not waste time here because we have a lot to cover. So we're beginning with the reworked class tree. Again, I can just have a generic kind of Mythic Plus build I've been messing around with on beta here, and I will compare that to a old Mythic Plus build from the Dragonflight iteration of the monk tree to kind of contrast what is going on between the two. So right off the top here, it's relatively similar. You get 1 point fast feet right off the top instead of a 2-point node down later on in the tree. It's now right off of Rising Sun Kick, which has been kind of shuffled around a bit. That roll node, improved roll, is gone. I believe that's just baseline. Now you just get that second charge of roll, and instead in its place here you get a small distance further, and there's a bunch of roll expanding nodes kind of throughout the tree here. I think there's some like CDR when you successfully interrupt, it also works on paralysis. There's like this new like double jump dash thing down here in the bottom left of the tree. Just a bunch of those, some like passive move speed, a bunch of those kind of minor utility adjustments to roll and just move speed related throughout the tree here, which are kind of interesting to see. You've also gained some utility here as a monk with an enraged dispel. So right here, this node makes paralysis an enraged dispel. Bit of a weird thing to do to paralysis, but that is a soothe now. It's a 30-second CD baseline, and then like I said, there's a talent here which reduces its its cooldown, sorry, by 5 seconds when you interrupt. So 25 seconds, pretty long, not something that you're going to want to rely on, but potentially if raging is something that stays in as an affix, or if there's a really important soothe on a mob in a dungeon, this would be something you take. Otherwise, it's probably something you're going to pass on a lot of the time, but something you have at least in your arsenal if you want it. You of course have the same defensive choice nodes here as a Brewmaster. Dampen Harm is still a node for Brewmaster to choose between, as well as Diffuse Magic and Yulon's Grace there. But you see Fort Brew has moved a bit more central, which is nice, makes it easier to access. And then once you start getting to the bottom, a few things are of note. One, of course, White Tiger statue is gone. That ability is just not a thing anymore for Brewmasters. Black Ox is still right there, but the other one is not. The 2 raid buff AoE things you had in Generous Pour and Close to Heart are also gone. Those have been replaced with these nodes here, Martial Instincts and Chi Proficiency, which are similar but just single target buffs to yourself and much easier to get. Again, a little bit more central, a little bit more easier to access here. Things like Bounce Back is a single point node, and just down here in general you have like a few kind of interesting choices. Flow of Chi here, you get a benefit depending on where your health is at, so it's either some move speed. If you're at high health, if you're at medium health, it's a DR, and if you're at low health, it's a healing received increase, which is cool. Fatal Touch here, 90-second CDR and 5% damage increase when you press Touch of Death. And the other thing for Brewmaster actually is Clash. Clash is actually here if you want Clash. It's down here in the bottom right. It's no longer in the spec tree. It's over in the class tree. You also have this, another, I think it's another roll node. Yeah, your heightened reflexes allow you to act swiftly in the presence of enemies, causing you to lunge if you roll within 10 yards of an enemy. So another kind of roll modifier node there. Just some interesting choices. Just generally things are a lot easier for you to get to as well. I think Tiger Tail Sweep, where even was that on the regular tree? It's over here on the left side. So yeah, something you could literally never get. You just get it for free. I think there's also, yeah, some baked in leg sweep CDR now up here. Instead of it just being paralysis CDR, it's now leg sweep and paralysis CDR, excuse me. So you get kind of a bunch of increases to leg sweep here for free, and you're just gaining quite a bit. This is a 1 point node, only 2% damage now, so you are losing a little bit of value out of Ferocity of Swen, but you save points. Same up here, Grace of the Crane, you're losing a bit of value, but it's now a 1 point node, and so you're gaining that to put in other places. I think it's a fair trade overall, and in general, I think Brewmasters are probably going to be pretty happy with the state of their current class tree. Now let's go and talk about the spec tree a little bit. Again, I'm gonna scroll down here a little bit, move this over to the other side, and we're gonna go in here. Boom. All right, so this is what we've got in the spec tree, and we have a lot of interesting things here to talk about. So let's talk about baseline. I think the big news is the improved Celestial Brew here and the improved Purifying Brew. These are just baseline. 2 free talent points right off the bat, you're just gaining. On top of that, they removed a bunch of talents from the tree. So Healing Elixir is gone. It's been replaced with a sick new talent, so that's nice. Bone Dust Brew and the related talents on the bottom are gone. So that is no longer a thing. And if you'll notice too, Bone Dust Brew is gone. White Tiger Statue is gone. That's 2 buttons that you're not pressing anymore. We'll talk about that in a second, but if you were worried about the button bloat on Brewmaster, you are significantly less worried now. Anyways, those are what's gone. Now let's move to what's new, because there's quite a few new talents here. To start, Elixir of Determination. When you fall below, 40% health, you gain an absorb for 100% of your recently purified damage, or a minimum of 20% of your max health, and it has a 15-second ICD. So this can proc quite frequently, and it is very good. It is very good. It gives you a shield when you need it most, and I am a big fan of this talent. Way better than Healing Elixir could ever be, and it really helps a Brewmaster with a bit more of sustain, because it gives you these absorb shields relatively frequent. Whenever you fall below, you get that big absorb shield, and it gives you some time to kind of get back up. On top of that, another thing which really helps, August Blessing here. When you would be healed above your maximum health, you instead get a hot equal to 40% of your crit strike for that overhealing, and that obviously with your stagger, you're constantly taking those ticks from stagger. This really helps to offset some of that stagger damage, and especially right if you're that you have moments where you're safe, you have moments where you have absorb shields up, you can kind of build up this August Blessing, and then once those absorb shields are down, once you're in a bit more danger, the healing starts ticking through from that hot that you've built up, which is kind of nice. Over here, you have a few things related to Elusive Brawler. So one with the wind, 10% chance to not reset Elusive Brawler after 6-foot dodge, and then Rising Sun Kick, also granting a stack of Elusive Brawler as well. In terms of what's replaced Bone Dust Brew, it's now a passive ability in Ox Stance, which is pretty cool for difficult content. So when you cast Purifying Brew, you gain charges of Ox Stance based on your stagger, and then when you take damage that is greater than some amount, this talent is currently buffing it to be 40% of your current health. That is important. Current health. A charge is consumed, and you increase the amount you stagger. So very good in harder content. When you're purifying a lot, you're getting a lot of these stacks, and you're taking quite a few hits that are going to trigger this to allow you to stagger more. Very good defensively. If you don't need this though, you could drop like both these points here and just go grab some damage points over here with like face bomb, cheesers, that kind of thing, right? If you just wanted more damage and didn't really care about that. Now in terms of actually like what you're gaining over the current tree, right? Again, this is just an example, right? You're moving Quick Sip into your Elixir of Determination here, continuing to move down. Because Resonant Fist was removed, I think Special Delivery is very not only competitive but better in situations as well. So because of that, that's one less button you have to press. And me personally, listen guys, I'm a Rushing Jade Wind hater. I will die on that hill. So anytime I get to spec into Special Delivery and not Rushing Jade Wind, I'm a happy Brewmaster. So instantly, boom, buttons gone. And now if you're counting, that is 3 buttons gone. Bone Dust Brew gone. Also lost, like I mentioned earlier in the class tree, your Tiger Statue gone. Rushing Jade Wind gone if you wanted gone essentially. So button bloat really heavily reduced. So shout out to Blizzard for addressing a significant problem. The other thing here, Ox in the middle of the tree. All the talents are completely central for Ox. Ox still kind of sucks, but having all these points be so central and not related to anything else in terms of pathing means that you can just not take them. So that saves you, the point here that you kind of had to path through Ox, right, to go down, and you just don't have Ox anymore. So boom, that's another button gone. Ox is gone, and so that, doesn't feel nearly as bad now to have them like Weapons of Order. You don't need to press the advantage to drop that button as well, but you can if you really want to. But I don't feel nearly as bad taking Weapons of Order. I personally like Weapons of Order much better than Ox in my opinion, and now you can just grab it. So the button bloat issues are certainly a thing of the past with the options that you've been given with these talent tree reworks. So again, hats off to Blizzard. Really big fan of how this turned out. Anvil and Stave also got a rework, by the way. Not a rework, sorry, an adjustment. It used to have a 3-second ICD, and now the effect is reduced for each recent melee attacker. I need to do some more testing with it. I haven't been able to do testing because I was hoping to do more this weekend, but some of you know Mythic Plus is not open this weekend, so haven't been able to do that. But this is also something I'm interested in testing on, maybe dropping something like High Tolerance or something like that and moving that over just to see how that kind of works. But also a potential option here is that because that ICD was moved. So if all that doesn't get you excited, let's talk the tier bonuses for Brewmaster, because this is, I think, my favorite out of all the tanks. The only one that seems actually to have a decent impact. So off the top here, the two-piece, relatively boring. Blackout Kick, Keg Smash, deal 20% additional damage. Shuffle, grant you 3% DR. This is pretty par for the course for all tanks, really. Some minor DPS increases and a flat 3% DR. But now is where it gets interesting. So Blackout Kick increases your damage dealt by 1% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3. So a flat 3% increase in damage on top of the two-piece damage increase. But also, it has a chance to reset the cooldown of Cake Smash and make it cost no energy. So that is really, really big. You get quite a few Cake Smash resets. Of course, you're going to be Blackout Kicking on CD here just as much as you possibly can. It transfers to a lot of Cake Smashes. A lot of Cake Smashes transfers a lot with Synergy. If you have, the talent tree here, right? If you're running Salsalabim Strength with Dragonfire Brew, it means you're getting a lot more Breath of Fire resets. It means you're getting a lot more of these procs from Dragonfire Brew. It also means you're getting a lot more Brew CDR. It's just the most impactful tank tier bonus out of the 6 so far by a lot. It is the only one really that impacts your playstyle by as much as it does, and I think it's just a big win for Brewmaster so far on the tier set. I think easily they are the best tier set for tanks in the first season. And from there, let's talk about the hero talents themselves. Not much else to talk about in terms of the tier. And we'll start with Shado-Pan, which is definitely my least favorite of the two, but let's get into it. Essentially, what's happening here is it revolves around, unleashing a bunch of flurry charges once you spend 400 energy. And throughout the tree as well, it basically enhances not only your Keg Smash in terms of damage, but also your other energy spenders. So there's like a flat Keg Smash increase. And then also here's the energy spender increase, which also gives some weapons of order CDR. Not a ton, but it is something, I guess. And in terms of what your spenders are, it is, your Keg Smash, of course. It is your Tiger Palm. It is your Spinning Crane Kick, and it is your Expel Harm. A lot of those aren't super high impact, right, outside of specifically Keg Smash, so it's kind of okay in that regard. The big saving grace for this tree to me is this node right here, Predictive Training in Keys and Mythic Plus specifically, because this is essentially a 100% uptime, 10% DR. It's only going to be down like if you don't have like a dodge thing built up immediately on pawn entering a pull, but within a few seconds of entering a pull, and then just for the rest of a pull, this is at 100% uptime. Like is a perma 10% DR on trash pulls. Again, maybe on a boss it's not going to be 100%, but on trash 100% uptime. And this is significant, right? Just having a 100% uptime on a 10% DR as a Brewmaster when you're staggering that kind of thing is very relevant, right? This is a very, very powerful node on its own. Outside of that node, though, I'm not a huge fan of what this tree does, so it takes a very, very long time to actually hit the 400 energy threshold, because, of course, you've got the Cake Smash. You're getting free Cake Smashes from the tier set, little counter synergy there, and then when you actually unleash the blows, the damage is nice. You get a random buff here out of these things, so crit strike damage, dodge and crit strike chance, flurry strikes deal extra damage, or mastery increase. That is random. One of those at random you get when you do actually unleash your flurry strikes for 20 seconds at least. Then you have this buff, which is a 6-second agi buff when you actually only unleash your flurry strikes. So again, you have to hit the energy threshold to get either of these buffs. This one lasts 20 seconds. I'd like it to be maybe less random. Maybe you get, maybe it's just one singular buff that does a bunch of these things at lower thresholds, something like that. But at least the duration is good. This one is a good buff on a 6-second duration, and again, this is abysmal uptime because this takes like let's say a minute. Might actually be more or maybe a little less than that, depending. But let's say loosely it's a minute. Abysmal uptime on this. I think this buff, the duration of this buff, at least for Brewmaster, needs to go up for sure. And then the other thing with the actual proccing of this itself is that there are situations maybe where you're getting to this energy threshold and you're nearing the end of a pack, right? Maybe it's not dead, but maybe it's like 15% health, 10% health. And you're like, I want to save this flurry for the next pack. Guess what? Unless you just stop pressing Keg Smash, Spinning Crane Kick, Tiger Palm, those abilities, you can't do that, which means like half your globals you either have to sit AFK on or you have to kite or something. It feels bad. Maybe you could do like the Deathbringer treatment where, when you trigger your mark, it empowers Marrow Rend specifically. And if you press Marrow Rend, that triggers the Exterminate. Potentially, you could do like, maybe this empowers like Tiger Palm or something, and your Tiger Palm is going to trigger your Flurry Strike, something that you're not necessarily spamming and something that you don't feel too bad holding in a lot of situations, right? You're not going to be spamming Tiger Palm. It's not like a huge priority for you to hit. It's relatively low on the priority, right? So you could, in theory, hold that, and then that way you have a bit more control over when you are using your Flurry Strike proccing potentially, but you know, that's just a thought. Otherwise, it's a pretty passive tree, right? Your Keg Smash is going to look like it does massive damage with this tree because it kind of double bonus here between these two. And of course, you're getting Keg Smash reaches, that kind of thing. So huge Keg Smash damage, huge 10% DR at all times in Mythic Plus. That is pretty much the only saving grace, though, for this tree. My opinion, needs a little bit of work, at least with how it functions for Brewmaster, right? Maybe this threshold is makes sense for like Windwalker. I don't know. But for Brewmaster, I think it's a bit off, at least for me. Then we talk Master Harmony, and I'm a big fan of Master Harmony. I really like this tree. Basically, how this works is that you use abilities, your damage abilities, your healing abilities, your purifying brew, those kind of things. You build this vitality pool. You have this pool of vitality here, and then you press Celestial Brew, and then for 10 seconds, your abilities will now pull from this pool to apply a dot to mobs, and then from the capstone, this dot can also spread and deal like additional damage, and the mobs that have it take additional damage from you as well. So that's kind of cool. And then on top of this, you get a second charge of Celestial Brew. So you have a bit of flexibility now with how you're using your Celestial Brews and using these damage amps. You have a lot of control over how you use these damage amps. There's some interesting things you can do with how you manipulate this pool, right? Like you can do kind of like fake, like not fake, but like it's like funnel damage into bosses where like you can build a massive pool of vitality on a big AoE pull before a boss, not use your Celestial Brew near the end of that pack or whatever to build up that massive pool, and then you go into the boss fight and you Celestial Brew and just pop your damage there with like a weapons order or whatever, and just do a massive chunk of single target damage. It does come into the problem where, you know, it's a bit harder to actually build your vitality pool up in single target. So that's something that maybe could be addressed. And you don't need to worry about wasting your vitality because of this point here where, you know, you can opt into just having it explode for remaining damage if you don't actually go through the whole vitality pool. So again, another reason why that is potentially good funnel into bosses, because you can make this massive pool and you don't need to use it all because it's damage that is split. So if there's only the one boss, it still does all that damage to the boss. The other thing here is just, you know, have to press, you know, Expel Harm and Vivify to withdraw healing, which you probably don't ever actually want that to do. You probably want to only take out damage from this pool. So otherwise, kind of throughout this tree, a lot of your abilities that weren't buffed by Shado-Pan are buffed here. So I think it's like, yeah, it's Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm does get also a buff here as well. So because all of these kind of get buffs and all of these are contributing extra vitality, it does kind of, even in Mythic Plus, move you a little bit away from using Spinning Crane Kick. Even it's like a relatively low use button because you really prioritize using these buttons even in AoE because they do some AoE damage and they contribute more towards your vitality. So all of a sudden these buttons become significantly higher priority than Spinning Crane Kick, so you don't want to press that as much. And on top of this, it also actually impacts Chi Burst. So Chi Burst is something I didn't talk about actually in the general tree. Basically, Chi Burst is now a proc, so your abilities have a chance to make Chi Burst castable, and then when you do cast it, and you can still avoid while you're casting it, it just shoots, you know, straight in front of you like it used to do, you know, reduced beyond 5 targets, but it hits pretty dang hard. And you also have boom, there's double damage and double healing there, and you also have this balanced stratagem thing where your abilities kind of build up this damage amp, physical build up your magic damage amp, and magic spell build up a fizz damage amp. And so you can kind of watch this with your procs and build up a big magic damage amp and have a 100% plus a 25% damage amp on your Chi Burst. Makes it do huge damage. That's kind of cool. A nice little burst proc there, which is, again, I really like this gameplay. I really like this tree in general. There's like a little Tigerless speed thing. Note that it doesn't actually do freedom effect of Tigerless. It's just a move speed thing, so you can get some little bit of CDR on your roll as well. So overall, I'm kind of a big fan of Master of Harmony specifically over Shado-Pan. I do think Shado-Pan needs some work to make it fit better into Brewmaster. The bones are there. It's really nice. It does make you feel a lot tanky. Like you do feel that 10% DR, and you do feel the, you know, with the bonuses of all the other things you've been getting through the Brewmaster tree reworks, you do feel tankier as a Shado-Pan, in my opinion. but I just like the playstyle and how this affects you more as Master of Harmony. And again, I think Brewmasters are very, very happy with how the talent rework has actually worked out for them. Button bloat has been severely addressed, so that is very, very good. And I think I was not the only player with that issue of button bloat. Maybe you enjoyed it, maybe you didn't. Let me know down in the comments below, though. I would love to hear what you guys think about Brewmasters. Are you excited to play it after the rework? Did you prefer it how it was before? Let me know down below. This video does mark the end of my tank beta preview series. I will be turning then to raids and Mythic Plus for season 1, so be on the lookout for videos on those. And I will be posting my updated thoughts on tanks and where they actually rank closer to launch. Once we've done more Mythic Plus testing, once we've seen more tuning done, I'll have a much better view, hopefully more accurate for you guys. I know a lot of people have been asking, and just I don't quite want to give any definitive answers yet because it is so early, but you know, give me a month and I will have all of my thoughts posted in a video for you guys. Otherwise, gotta give a big thank you to my amazing supporters over on Patreon for helping me to do what I do here, and I'll see everyone in the next video.